Here's an insight for you. Republicans view the world differently than Democrats. Well, you're saying to yourself right now, that's not a very startling insight, and indeed it isn't. However, I was reminded of it in looking recently at reactions to a series of 8 proposals that we tested. These proposals relate to the environment and energy. In general, we find significant differences between the two partisan groups, with Republicans, for the most part, being more negative about any proposal that has to do with emission standards or environmental controls, and Republicans being more positive about a couple of the issues that we tested, the proposals we tested, that deal with the development of more energy. Look at the list in front of you there. You can see in general, when we look at the total population, Americans kind of like it all. President Obama said that recently. He says we need all of the above when it comes to energy, and that's what you see here. Strong majorities of Americans agree with things like setting emission standards and pollution standards for business and industry, and developing alternative sources of energy, and this is the real key here, opening up land owned by the federal government for oil exploration. In other words, when you test these items, Americans say, sure, open up lands, do more drilling, but also do more emissions controls. But as I mentioned, look at the Republican data here. There's a big spread on these environmental related issues, with Democrats strongly more in favor than Republicans. Let me just pick one at random here. Spending more government money on developing solar and wind power. Well, you see in front of you 69% of Americans approve of that, but only 51% of Republicans and Republican leaners approve. And that contrasts with 84% of Democrats and Democratic leaners who approve. So there's a major 30-plus point gap between Republicans and Democrats on the idea of alternative energy. Now, what about that idea I mentioned of opening up land owned by the federal government for oil exploration? Well, there's a flip. 84% of Republicans approve of that, and only 49% of Democrats approve. So there are these big partisan differences, but again, the bottom line is, when you put it all together, all of us here in this country, regardless of partisan orientation, you find that Americans overall, even including expanding nuclear energy, which has a slight majority approving it, say, yeah, go ahead and do all of the above because we think it will help, so the American public tells us, our energy situation. I'm Dr. Frank Newport, Gallup Editor-in-Chief.